What if I told you that there were two? What if I told you that there were multiple? Apologies for the Y2K bug, but welcome to Unsolicited Film Reviews. I'm Zach Miller, he's Martin Cooke, and we're delving deep, very deep into 1999. Hopefully, you listened to or watched our last episode, but we covered the first half of this totally stacked year. I would say the first half is like the blockbuster half, and this is like the adult intellectual half as we go through this journey. But first off, be sure to click those buttons down below as long as they don't have a thumbs down on them. Need those, and we need comments. We didn't get any comments last week. What's up, guys? Tell a friend about us. Tell an enemy about us. But yeah, most importantly, tell an enemy. But before we get into the
Got
latter
some
half of 19
controversy on this channel.
Before we get into the latter half of 1999, I believe our very own Martin Cook has the weekly box office totals. What's going on, Martin?
I do indeed. So coming in number one once again in its second weekend was Lilo and Stitch with
Yeah.
61.8 million. Yeah, Zach's number one pick from our blockbuster draft. It's now over 627 million worldwide. So yeah, you're off to a major lead right now. And number two was your number two pick, Mission Impossible at 27.2 million weekend, second weekend for it as well, and 360 million worldwide so far. Coming in at number three, our new entrant to the top five this week, Karate Kid Legends, which was my fifth pick, and it did not do very well. Only a $20.3 million weekend, which was a bit below what Sony was expecting, unfortunately. I think they were projecting more in the 30 million weekend. So not a great start. And yeah, I think I misjudged that as well because I thought that a lot of the audience from Cobra Kai might translate, and it doesn't seem to have so far. Fourth, Final Destination still holding well. Final Destination Bloodlines in its third weekend, 10.9 million weekend, over 233 million worldwide. So this one is undeniably a hit. That's basically surpassing most expectations for Final Destination. And number five, another new entrant, Bring Her Back at 7.1 million on the weekend. And that means for the first time in a while, both Sinners, which came in sixth, and Thunderbolts drop out of the top five. Seventh weekend for Sinners, fifth weekend for Thunderbolts. So they both, I mean, Sinners did great, especially compared to budget and expectations. Thunderbolts, not so great, and there's a lot of people lamenting it, but I think overall it's still going to be, at least break even and maybe profitable for Marvel. So it's not an outright disaster.
Yeah, but to put things in perspective, your fifth round pick, Karate Kid Legends, is vastly outperforming my fifth round pick,
That is true. That is true.
which
But that
was
still puts me about 900 million behind you at this point.
for
But
now,
I still
yeah.
have I still have my top four picks to come.
Yeah, so I picked the last rodeo fifth, and that only has about 11 million. So
Yeah,
if we're going pick by pick, your number one pick doesn't come until F1, which
that
is
is true.
later
Yeah,
this month. So that's when we'll really see where this starts to shake out.
absolutely.
So what's coming this week? We have quite a few wide releases. We have Wes Anderson's latest flick, The Phoenician Scheme. As always, it's a quirky comedy. That's I mean, that's
That's
his
what Wes
entire
Anderson
catalog.
does. Yeah.
Yeah. And always an ensemble cast. This one has Benicio del Toro, Michael Cera, Tom Hanks, Bryan Cranston, Scarlett Johansson, Benedict Cumberbatch, and many more household names. This cast is wild, and Wes Anderson seems to be able to like it's a fly paper basically whenever he has a movie. Everybody wants to work with him, it seems like.
Yeah.
So then we have from the world of John Wick, Ballerina. It's getting pretty good reviews so far, and it might one of us or both of us might regret not picking this,
Yeah, I
honestly.
think it's the one that we're gonna both regret missing out on in our blockbuster draft, but we'll see.
Yeah, Anna de Armas is, one of the most
Great.
stunning
Yeah.
actresses and get a good actress in her
And
own right.
apparently does pretty well as an action star. I mean, we saw a little bit of it in that last James Bond where she had about a 10-minute scene where she just stole the movie for those 10 minutes. So we'll see what happens in this one.
For sure. Then we have Da Da Dan Evil Eye. Apparently, it's an extremely popular anime series that I literally know nothing about.
For a second,
But
I thought there was that Y2K glitch again as you were saying that
no,
title.
no, no. So then we have Dangerous Animals. It's a survivor horror movie that's also getting very good reviews. So we'll see how that does in the the mire that is the blockbuster season. And last, we have The Ritual, which is a horror film starring Al Pacino and Dan Stevens of Downton Abbey and Beauty and the Beast fame.
Yes.
And it's the only straight up horror movie that Pacino's ever been in that I've seen personally. But
Yeah, I can't think of any off the top of my head, but maybe there's one I'm missing. Yeah.
I mean, Devil's Advocate is kind of a
Yeah,
pseudo
that's not really
horror,
a
but
horror.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
yeah, okay.
Yeah. So
So
yeah,
yeah,
so yeah, as you mentioned at the beginning, we're no funny disguises today. We're out of the summer blockbuster and now we're into the serious movies. So yeah, we're gonna take this all very seriously, of course.
yeah.
But
So let's
yes,
kick it off.
yeah. So yeah, we're back into 1999 one more time, and now we're going September through December. All the amazing movies that were released in those 4 months. And we start off on September 15th. American Beauty was released. And this is a family drama, dysfunctional family drama from director Sam Mendes. It was his feature film debut. Writer Alan Ball, also his feature film debut. Ball went on to do more TV fare like 6 Feet Under and True Blood. It stars Kevin Spacey, Annette Bening, Thora Birch, Wes Bentley, and Mina Suvari, who you maybe remember from part one that we did last week when she was in American Pie, another movie with American in the title, but a very different role for Mina Suvari this time. And this was the big critical hit of 1999. It was nominated for 10 Oscars, won five, including Best Picture, Best Actor for Spacey, Best Director, Best Screenplay. Um, and for a dysfunctional family drama, it was also a pretty massive hit. It was the 13th highest grossing film of the year. It made 356 million worldwide on a $15 million budget. That's kind of hard to imagine these days that a crazy family drama would make that kind of money. But back in 99, people wanted to go see good movies. Um, and rewatching this, between this and Office Space and Fight Club, all in that year,
Yeah,
people really hated their jobs back in
yeah, no shit, dude.
1999.
Yeah,
It's just a lot of miserable people. The other thing that stood out to me, the music composed by Thomas Newman really helps make this film. Like he
mm,
didn't when we did our podcast on great film composers a couple of months back, he didn't make our top 10, but he probably would have been on the short list of like the next couple. He's had a fantastic career, right? I mean, movies like Scent of a Woman, Shawshank Redemption, Green Mile, which is one we'll be talking about, Aaron Brockovich, Wall-E, Skyfall, 1917. Like he's had a great career, and his music really, I think, elevated this movie. There were also some great, I found, sort of smaller performances, particularly from Allison Janney and Chris Cooper.
yeah,
Um, their performances were really good. I will say though, rewatching it, some of the stuff came across as a bit hackneyed. Like the whole setup to Chris Cooper's character believing that his son is fucking Lester Burnham is a little ridiculous, with some cheesy camera angles and stuff. But overall, it was still interesting. And yeah, at the time, I don't remember believing it was the best picture, and I still don't believe that now. But it's definitely an interesting rewatch. What are your
yeah.
thoughts?
Yeah, I'm glad you left off on that because I completely agree that it constantly makes the list of like most overrated movies of all time. And I've only seen this once, and it wasn't in 1999. I was too young to be interested in this kind of movie whatsoever.
Right.
But I saw this in probably 2010 or whatever. But anyway, yeah, it is. So okay, the point being, I went into this with an open mind, trying to
Hmm.
like shut out the criticism, being just trying to take this as if I'm watching this for the first time, which I did with quite a few of these movies. But yeah, it is not that good of a movie. It's good, but it's not Best Picture good, and especially not 1999 Best Picture good.
Yeah.
It. Again, like you said, it's more corporate dronery,
Yes, yeah, it
and
really
it's
is.
suburban white people problems.
Yeah, it
Um,
absolutely is.
but
Yeah,
again,
was there a person of color in this entire movie? I don't think so.
yeah, there was one basketball scene where they were playing high school basketball.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
That was
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, not a speaking role.
No, absolutely
Yeah.
not. Just
Yeah. So,
show some black dudes dunking, and that was it.
yeah,
But
yeah.
American Pie, though, I noticed John Cho.
Yes. Yes. Somehow he's yeah, very bizarre.
Yeah, he's only in it for 5 seconds and he doesn't have any lines, but still, it's wild that he and Mina Savari are both in American Pie and American Beauty.
Yeah, maybe they had the same agent at the time and they're like, okay, anything with American in the title, put me in it.
Yeah, like it was so overwrought though. Like
Yes.
the screenplay was just so masturbatory, and especially like two things, like the floating bag monologue
Yeah,
and
yeah. Most of the Wes Bentley scenes were pretty pretty what's the word to use cringeworthy
mm,
watching it again.
yeah, and cringe is overused a lot, but in
Yeah,
this case, it
it
is
is. It is pretty cringe. It's all
it
pretty
is
cringe. Yeah.
suitable. Yes, and the voiceover from Kevin Spacey is just so over the top and flowery, and this would work great in a novel, but I just hate when movies try to do this. It at some point you're just trying to impress us with your wordsmanship,
Yeah.
and the character of Lester would never actually say the things that he's saying in this voiceover. It's so obviously the screenwriter trying to impress us with his metaphors and
Right.
things
That's
like
a good
that.
point. Yeah, the voiceover doesn't match the yeah, that's a very good point. Doesn't match the character that we're watching on the screen. Yeah.
Yeah, and I remember Thora Birch getting a lot of praise for her performance, but she was the worst actor in the movie.
Yeah, she wasn't great, actually. I mean, this led to a bit of a career for her. She's kind of fallen off since, but yeah, upon rewatch, she really was not great.
One good thing though is somewhat interesting that we know Lester dies, but we don't know who actually kills Lester, and there are a
Yeah.
lot of candidates throughout that could
Yes.
be the culprit. So that was an interesting thread.
Yeah. Yeah, and some non-Chekhov's gun that Annette Bening's carrying around, and we think, oh no, but then she's not actually the one that kills him. Yeah. There definitely a lot of red herrings thrown at there.
Yeah, but again, the massive issue I had is just it seemed like the screenwriters were just jacking off on the
Yeah,
screen.
yeah. Well, and as we said, his first feature film, he didn't really have much subtlety. Not that 6 Feet Under or True Blood were filled with subtlety as TV shows either. But I guess that's just Alan Ball. All right, but
I,
that's probably enough on American.
one
Oh,
last
sorry,
like
one more
I, I
point.
I could see why this was so praised at the time because
Mhm.
as we've gone through all these movies, obviously being in an office is like the worst thing you could possibly do. So, and this is kind of like the intellectual version of those three movies, Office Space, Fight Club, and
Right.
American Beauty. So
Yeah.
I can see why people were intrigued by this, but it does not hold up to a modern audience, especially when it's against the field.
No, no. I mean, it's not as bad as something like I'm drawing a blank. Anyway, I'm not sure it's the worst best picture of all time, and I probably wouldn't even put it top five. But it's yeah, it's it's not great. The next movie that we absolutely would have talked about, that was released, we're doing these chronologically, if you can't tell, was Fight Club, which was released on October 15th. I mean, it was an important movie that, yeah, clearly would have warranted more in-depth discussion, but we already discussed it in our podcast about great movie twists, that episode a couple of months ago. And we thought it was worth mentioning. We didn't want to just jam it in with all the other kind of also rans that we are going to talk about at the very end. But for anybody who's interested in our thoughts on Fight Club, please check out that plot twist episode that we put out on March 28th.
Yes, sir. And then up next we have Being John Malkovich. I had never. There are a few of the movies we're about to talk about that I had never seen before.
Really? Okay.
And again, I was a kid in 1999, so I saw all the blockbusters that we talked about in the previous episode, but
Right.
being John Malkovich just never really appealed to me as a 10, 11-year-old for obvious reasons.
Yes.
But so they call this a fantasy slash drama slash comedy film, but
It can't be classified. Yeah.
what actual genre it is anyone's guess.
Yeah.
It's directed by Spike Jonze in his film debut and written by Charlie Kaufman also in his film debut. Stars John Cusack, Cameron Diaz, Catherine Keener, and shockingly, John Malkovich. It wasn't a box office juggernaut by any means, but it's definitely become a cult classic since then. Nominated for 3 Oscars for Best Director, Original Screenplay, and Supporting Actress for Keener. So I have notes, but let's get your initial thoughts on John Malkovich, being
I've
John
always
Malkovich.
loved this movie. It's funny and weird in all the best ways. It's also incredibly dark. I'd kind of forgotten just how dark it is in terms of all the people. And rewatching it, it is a bit on the nose in terms of some of those themes. Like these are people who are unhappy in their own lives, and they're literally trying to become something else. But I think it still works because it's so consistent. Like every part of it plays into the theme through the puppeteer stuff to the relationships. Just it's all moving towards the same theme. And then some of the performances. I mean, Catherine Keener, I think, deserved her nomination. She was electric, I thought, as this, incredibly kind of dislikable, selfish character, but still great. Cameron Diaz in a totally unrecognizable role for her was great. Um, and then just the pairing of Spike Jonze and Charlie Kaufman, it's just such a perfect pairing of writer and director in terms of their sensibilities and how they come together to make this work. I don't think that it's the next pairing that they did was not quite as successful as this one, but this was great.
Yeah, this is another
Sorry,
board.
adaptation, I should have said. The next pairing they did was adaptation, but
Oh, okay. Yeah, still pretty good though.
yeah, still good.
Okay.
Yeah,
So yeah, this is another bored, frustrated white guy movie,
it is. Yeah.
but there's a more interesting in here, and low ceilings equal less overhead, and everything is just so bizarre from start to finish.
And
Uh,
oh, sorry, that must be my speech impediment. I don't know how she puts up with me. Just mishears
yeah,
everything he says.
it's a very strange world, and I'm into weird shit.
Yeah.
But it definitely takes a minute to settle into this one. But once I was settled and I realized what kind of movie this is going to be, I was totally along for the ride. Uh, yeah, I mean this is right up my alley. This would have come out 10 years later. This probably would have been one of my favorite movies of the era. Um, quick note. There's a little Octavia Spencer action
Yes. Yeah.
in an elevator, and
Yeah.
the saying "black don't crack" definitely applies to her because she looks exactly the same as she did in 1999. So
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
good for
No
her.
difference.
She did
Yeah,
something right.
one final note on this one. It's kind of funny, just sort of a little behind the scenes thing. So when Spike Jonze, who had been talking with Kaufman, when he first sent the script to Malkovich, because Jones had some connections to get it to him, Malkovich didn't quite get it, and he didn't understand what was going on, and most importantly, he didn't understand why him. And so he was like, well, I think I like it. Like he liked the writing and liked the script. And so he wanted to actually direct it. And then he thought, well, but let's get a bigger name. Let's make it be like being Tom Cruise or somebody more famous. And then Spike Jonze is like, no, 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 that's not the point. The point is that it's supposed to be somebody who's kind of odd and unknowable, which I don't know if is, but eventually they kind of agreed. But before that, Spike Jonze also didn't understand why Malkovich had rejected it. So he thought, oh, maybe it's all the jokes at his expense. So he took those out. And when he sent it to him again, when Malkovich agreed, Malkovich was like, well, where are all those mean things that you were said about me? I loved those. And so then Spike Jonze had and Kaufman had to put them back in. Just a funny little
Yeah,
anecdote.
Yeah, I respect the hell out of Malkovich for
Oh,
willing to be the butt of the entire joke of this movie.
yeah.
Uh, it called
Yeah, it's
out
a really
Charlie.
bold choice, actually,
For
for him
sure it was,
to
but
agree to make this movie.
he's always done weird movies, and
Yeah.
it's he's been able to parlay that into quite a successful career, and he's definitely found his niche. But calling out Charlie Sheen way before he was labeled a lunatic by the mainstream was amazing, and Charlie Sheen being able to poke fun at himself was
Yeah. The older
great as
Charlie Sheen
well.
that's all balding and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I've
Uh,
always thought that the only other person who could have done this movie, aside from Malkovich, would have been like Christopher Walken. It
okay.
really wouldn't work for anybody else other than actors like that. And
Yeah.
Malkovich is just so perfect for it.
Yeah, I'd have to think about it for a minute, but to like narrow it down. But yeah, I could see Walken doing that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I noticed that John Cusack has never looked more like his sister Joan in any movie that I've seen him in before. I don't know if it's the glasses that make his eyes kind of bug out a little more, or just the way his mouth moves, but
Right.
yeah, that was wild. And Cameron Diaz actually acting instead of just being eye candy is
Yeah. Yeah.
probably her best performance I've ever seen her in for sure.
Yeah, I mean, she didn't do too many movies like, well, I mean, nobody did movies like this, but most of hers were kind of rom-coms and things like that. And this is definitely outside of her wheelhouse. And yeah, she was great.
Yeah, I
She
mean, probably
really
the
nailed
most
it.
prestige movie she tried to do was Gangs of New York, and that's,
Yeah, yeah,
universally despised her
yeah,
performance at least.
yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah, don't question the rules too much on this one. Just sit
No,
back and enjoy it.
yeah,
It's definitely the weirdest climactic chase I've ever witnessed as well.
absolutely.
And in the very back of my mind, I was thinking, was this maybe the inspiration for Get Out?
Oh, wow. Yeah, I didn't even think about that part, but yeah, like I can see some of the parallels. Yeah, I'm sure it was somewhere in the back of Jordan Peele's head. But all right, moving on. Then on November 5th, The Insider was released. And this is a current events drama, I guess you could call it, by director Michael Mann. It was his follow-up to Heat that he had done in 1995. It was written by Mann, Eric Roth, one of the most successful screenwriters ever, and Marie Brenner. It was nominated for 7 Oscars, including Best Picture, Best Actor for Russell Crowe, and Best Director. It was kind of a box office flop, though, despite the critical acclaim. Like it only made 60 million worldwide on a $90 million budget, and part of that is, yeah, that's a pretty big budget for what this is. But it just, it's an amazing cast from, from Al Pacino and Russell Crowe, and just like it's those are obviously the two leads, but just everybody else in this movie is fantastic, and it's a real slow burn. This one, I mean,
Yeah,
I will say a lot of the movies we're talking about this week are incredibly long. A lot of them
yeah.
clock in at over 2.5 hours. It was kind of hard to get through them all doing the rewatches because a lot of them were very long this week. And this one is no exception. It's I think it's 2 hours and 40 minutes or something.
Yep.
And it does take a while to set things up, but I think it works because it sets up who these characters are. And so then when you put them in these tight positions and these very complex situations, you understand what's happening. And throughout the movie, it just keeps slowly building that tension, slowly building and building and building until Al Pacino just feels like it's interesting that Russell Crowe got the nomination for Best Actor because I think it's actually more Al Pacino's movie. He's
Yeah,
more the lead.
interesting. Yep.
Um, but it really comes down to the decisions that he makes when he's in a tough spot. Well, Crow as well, but it's above all, it's just a great movie about integrity and what it means to have integrity. Um, a line I wrote down after rewatching it here, I just loved when they meet with Russell Crowe and his wife, and they have a little fight, and they kind of run off, and Christopher Plummer's doing Mike Wallace, and he said, "Oh, what was it? What was that all about?" And Al Pacino's character goes, "Ordinary people under extraordinary pressure, Mike. What do you expect? Grace and consistency?"
Mm,
Great
yeah.
line.
Yeah, it was
Great
brilliant.
line.
So not only had I not watched this beforehand, I'd never even heard of it.
Wow.
And
Okay.
for it to be nominated for what did you say, 7 Academy
Yeah.
Awards?
7 Oscars. Yeah.
But again, like it's not the kind of movie that would appeal to me at that
Right.
point
Yeah. Yeah.
at
Well,
that point
and as I
in,
said, it was kind of a flop. So yeah, it didn't, despite the critical acclaim, it didn't really, not many people saw it.
but I'm so glad you suggested this because I fucking love this movie.
Mm.
It's
Hmm.
right in my wheelhouse at this particular point in my life, and this whole, like I said at the top of the top of the show, this half of 1999 is like, okay, we put the kids to bed, and now the
Yeah.
adults are in the room,
Exactly.
for the most
Yeah.
part, at least. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, I've always been a huge fan of the subdued version of Al Pacino.
Yes.
Um, I don't need all of his hoo-ah and that's a great ass.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's where he's made most of his money is in that wow, that
Yeah.
kind of
He's
shit.
kind of
But
become a parody of himself over the years
exactly.
now.
But I mean,
Yeah.
I still think to this day that his very best role was as Michael Corleone, where he
Yes.
barely shows any emotion.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I was blown away by this, and yeah, how this I can understand never seeing this, but how I never even heard of it is kind of weird that it's
Yeah,
not
that's
like
a
it.
surprise. Yeah,
And
especially with all the big names in it. I mean, Michael Mann and Russell Crowe and Al Pacino and Christopher Plummer. Yeah, it is kind of surprising.
yeah, Chris Plummer was a fucking powerhouse as Mike Wallace.
Yes. Yeah.
Definitely an amazing performance. What
Yeah,
a
so
two.
sort of confident and cocky and intimidating and but just this presence. Yeah, just amazing.
Yeah, what a 2 year run for Russell Crowe. He had
Yes.
an Oscar nom for this for Best Actor and a win next year for Gladiator for two roles that really couldn't be further apart.
Yes, you're right. Yeah, talk about confident. Gladiator is all about him being this brash warrior, and then in this, he's very meek and won't even really look people in the eye when he's speaking to them. And yeah, just this guy who's just suffering under this enormous pressure. You're right. Totally different roles.
Yeah, Russell Crowe's wife kind of threw me with her genteel Southern Belle accent. Like
Right.
even today, like actors kill me when they try to act like that's how people talk in the South. It's like I mean, it works when Daniel Craig's doing it in Knives Out, but like even when Kevin Spacey was doing it, like I'm the majority whip
Yeah,
of the
yeah,
House Democrats. It's like nobody talks like that since 1910. But anyway, that threw me just
yeah.
a little bit. But where are you going?
Yeah,
And
I know just one final note for me on the Insider. And again, not to get too political, which we stay away from for the most part on this podcast, but this film is also very relevant today in terms of news organizations being under pressure from the corporate overlords in terms of what's being told to them and lawsuits and all this kind of stuff. Very, very relevant. And especially relevant because it's 60 Minutes. And again, 60 Minutes having some issues right now. So,
yeah,
yeah,
it's
very interesting.
back when corporate media still had a reputation for getting to the bottom of a story instead of lying and unabashedly shilling for one political side or the other. So,
Yep. Yeah.
yeah. So then we have The Green Mile, directed by Frank Darabont from a Stephen King novel, second Darabont adaptation of King's work after The Shawshank Redemption. And unlike Shawshank, Green Mile was a massive hit, grossing over $250 million on a $60 million budget, although not as critically acclaimed and not as respected retroactively as Shawshank is.
Mhm.
Stars Tom Hanks and Michael Clark Duncan. Nominated for four Oscars: Best Picture, Best Supporting Actor for Duncan, Best Sound, and Best Adapted Screenplay. It tells the tragic story of a black man falsely accused of murdering two white girls in the early 20th century South. He also happens to have magic healing powers, though. He befriends Hanks's character, a prison guard with pee-pee problems. Thoughts on the Green Mile?
Yeah, I mean, you noted the Darabont and Stephen King thing. It's also, again, another one set in a prison and a period piece set in a prison from
Hmm.
Frank Darabont based upon Stephen King novel. So obviously he just went back to the well for this one. This is just a great cast. I mean, a lot of the movies we're going to be talking about had amazing casts, but this one particularly good. The young Sam Rockwell just going crazy as the sort of psychopathic killer in prison was fantastic. There are obviously a lot of Christian overtones in this movie in terms of somebody taking on sin and pain and trying to take it back and take it all the language around that is very much straight out of the New Testament. Um, but just it's another very long one. I think this one clocks in at close to 3 hours, and it involves a lot of preambles and a lot of flashbacks. And I'm not entirely sure they were all entirely necessary. Like, I think the movie probably could have still worked if it was 2.5 hours rather than three. Um, it did kind of the Saving Private Ryan thing of the old man at the beginning and then thinking back to the trauma earlier. And I'm not sure that that bookend was all that necessary, but whatever. It's still an interesting movie, and again, just carried a lot by the cast. It's funny in the cast. There's a scene on a porch where we've got a Forrest Gump and Lieutenant Dan reunion,
Yeah.
which I thought was kind of funny, with Hanks and Gary Sinise. But yeah, it's an interesting watch, and it's good because of the way it's shot. But all the filmmaking stuff is there. It isn't as interesting as Shawshank, I
Mhm.
think, in terms of the way the themes resonate. So that's probably why it doesn't have the lasting power that Shawshank does.
Yeah, yeah, I agree with those points. And this is another one that didn't see at the time and only saw about maybe 10 years ago or so. But man, uh RIP Michael Clark Duncan, because
Yes. Yeah.
he was just so, that was the role he was born to play. Like
Yeah.
really, he was kind of pigeonholed into a lot of comedic roles just because of his size
Hmm.
and his charisma, because he did have a lot of charisma, but he wasn't really cast in that many roles where he carried the emotional weight of the film, and he definitely did that. And oh my God, the climactic scene where he gets executed and he's I'm tired, boss, and whew,
Oh, it's heartbreaking. Yeah, and
that,
that's obviously a line that he had repeated a number of times throughout. And then when it happens in that moment, it just has all this extra impact because every other time that he's said that line, it's when he's gone out of his way to do something good for somebody else that's cost him literally in terms of his energy, in terms of, and then yeah, it is a very emotional movie. Absolutely.
mm, for sure. And with that, I think I'm gonna need a drink after watching Green
Yes.
Mile.
Time for a drink. So, what are we having this week?
We're having a Cosmo.
Woohoo! So
All right.
Cosmopolitan, obviously, we are having this week because 1999 was in TV a big deal for Sex in the City. And so because of Sex in the City, everybody was drinking Cosmopolitan. So it seemed like a 1999 podcast. We should be drinking some Cosmopolitans. So,
All right, so the ingredients are, we have vodka, triple sec, cranberry juice, fresh lime juice, and an orange twist. I didn't have time to do an orange twist, but
yeah, me neither.
first first off, we have a, oh, sorry everybody. I always show you how to do this. There we go.
Oh, that one thing I forgot when I was getting ready is a shot glass. So I'm going to have to eyeball
Oh, I did the exact same thing. We were in a bit of a
it.
rush tonight. All right, so we're doing, I don't know, a shot of vodka.
Yeah, I guess maybe I
Uh,
can use this. This is the top of the shaker is probably got to be closer to a shot, right?
yeah, sure,
There's
why not?
lines on it. Let's call that a shot.
All right.
And I'm making two because I have my mother here this week and she's just over to my shoulder. So I'm going to make her one as well.
How kind. All right, so doing 2 shots vodka, 1 shot triple sec, just a dash of fresh squeezed lime juice because I know last week we did fresh squeezed lemon juice and it wound up being a little too tart. So I'm just putting lime juice in there for the flavor, basically, and then just kind of fill the rest up of a martini glass with cranberry juice. Yeah, it looks about right.
Yeah, I like that. I actually tried this earlier today, and the recipe I was going on called for, once again, far too much lime and lemon juice. So I agree, just a little bit. It actually called for the recipe I was going on earlier, called for um, more lime juice than cranberry juice, which seemed ridiculous. So,
Hmm. Oh yeah. No, yeah, that is ridiculous. No, it's supposed to have this kind of rose-colored thing. Like, so Martin, are you more of a Samantha or a Carrie or Miranda?
I'll be honest. I saw one episode of that show in my entire life. So I really have no idea what I am in all those. All right, let me shake this up. I put mine in a shaker though, so gonna be at least somewhat fancy that way.
Oh, okay, there you go.
And
And for the listening audience, I threw on one of my mom's pink feather boas that I had to go and borrow.
definitely looking the part. And you, yeah, you're also one step ahead of me because you actually have the right kind of glass for it. I do
Oh,
not
you don't have a martini glass?
No, I don't actually. I do not have
Oh,
a martini glass, or at least not here. I've one up at the cottage, but none here. So
I thought you were a classy fella.
apparently not classy enough. All right, so I will leave this one here on the side for my mom, and here's mine. And cheers.
Hey,
There we go to 1999,
cheers
and
to all the men we can possibly sleep with this year.
yeah, I think that's what Sex and the City was all about.
Although
Um,
the latest episode had Miranda sleeping with Rosie O'Donnell, so that's been a
oh
turn
yeah, the
off.
show's back. That's right.
Yeah, it's been a
Yeah.
turn off for most of the audience as far as I could see in the comment section. But yeah, I don't think many people want to see Rosie O'Donnell and Cynthia Nixon in a sex scene.
No, no, but all right. Yeah,
Anyway,
we don't
yes,
need to talk about that.
back
Let's
to
move back to the
1999.
the movies of 1999, and now we're into December. December 17th, Magnolia came out, and this is a sprawling drama with interconnected storylines written and directed by Paul Thomas Anderson. It was his follow-up to his big breakout hit Boogie Nights from 1997. This was nominated for 3 Oscars: Best Writing, Best Supporting Actor for Tom Cruise, and Best Original Song, Save Me by Amy Mann. It all takes place over the course of basically about a day with some flashbacks and stuff in the LA area. And this movie is, I mentioned Amy Mann, her Save Me song got an Oscar nomination. And that is absolutely appropriate because this movie is helped tremendously by the soundtrack
Hmm.
of Amy Mann songs. And they were actually partly the inspiration for the movie. Paul Thomas Anderson has talked about how one of the lines in one of the songs, which he uses in a scene, now that I've met you, would you object to never seeing each other again in a scene between John C. Reilly and Melora Walters? He kind of started writing the movie from that point and worked out from there, he said,
Hmm.
with all these different interconnected relationships and storylines. So it's because it's such a big movie, it is a movie about a lot of things. Um, there are numerous themes, but I think overall it's a movie, as I say, with interconnected stories, all about people who are struggling to find connections.
Hmm.
Um, and then there's also another recurrent theme about the lasting damage that horrible parents have done to their kids that affects them throughout life. I mean, there's this quote that keeps being repeated throughout the movie: "We may be through with the past, but the past isn't through with us." Obviously all about things that psychologically sit with people. This was just an incredible cast, though. I mean, there's so many people I can't even think to mention everybody who's in this movie, but it meant that they each had fairly small parts, which I think actually worked because it sort of allowed each one of them to focus on those small parts. And it's like an entire movie of people trying to steal scenes. Like they're just
Yeah,
every
good point.
single one is kind of a tour de force in their own little, 5 to 10 minute bit. It's just a bunch of incredible performances. I absolutely love this movie. I've always loved this movie. It might be actually my favorite Paul Thomas Anderson movie. I know that it's some people don't like it at all, and so people are all over the place on this movie. Where are you, Zach?
Okay, another one that I had never seen.
Okay.
It has been in my Netflix queue since they were sending hard copies in the mail. And
Wow. Okay.
I've always wanted to watch it, but just never had like a timed and I saw how long it
It's
was.
another long movie. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
over three
another 3 hour
hours.
movie.
And I don't know, I just never got around to it. Just one of those movies. And again, as I've said over and over, it's one of the reasons why I love doing this podcast. And I love that you brought this one forward because yeah, as an adult, yeah, this is a phenomenal movie. And it's also a movie while watching it for the first time kind of makes your brain leak out of your ears
Yes.
because it is so complicated. And
Yeah.
I definitely want to go back and watch it again because I don't really have very many fully formed thoughts about it other than probably the best performance by Tom Cruise um,
Hmm.
that I've ever seen. Philip Seymour Hoffman is just an expert in anything he does, and we'll get
Yeah.
to that again. And Paul Thomas Anderson. I'm not. I always have to watch his movies twice, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, but
No, he puts
it's
a lot into them, a lot of themes, a lot of issues. Yeah.
exactly. And when I was doing my preliminary research on the movie, I saw that there were like charts on how all the characters interconnect with each other. So I was glad to see that I wasn't the only one that was kind of thrown by the complication or yeah, the complication of the movies is yeah, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the performances. Still not quite sure what it's trying to say,
Yeah.
but I will go back and definitely see it again. And I am very glad that I finally have this in my brain.
And then the big question in terms of what it's trying to say, what about the frogs? Right? Like
Yeah, yeah,
that
yeah.
that scene at the end that well, it's basically the climactic scene in the entire movie. And there's been a lot of talk about what could this possibly mean? What's going on there in this scene? I think there are two things. Um, One is that a lot of these characters need some sort of almost intervention and break. And this is kind of the outside world stepping in and and almost forcing a change in their behavior or forcing it's like a slap, it's a wake up call for a lot of these characters.
Okay.
So there's that aspect of it, I think. And then the other aspect is obviously the biblical reference.
Oh, sure, sure.
One of the plagues of Egypt. And interestingly, Paul Thomas Anderson has said that when he was writing it, that actually wasn't in his mind until he sent the script to a friend, like long before it was made, and the friend was like, "Oh, that's very interesting with the biblical reference." And Paul Thomas Anderson thought for a second. He thought, "Oh man, I wasn't even thinking about that." But then once he realized that, he thought maybe it was subconscious because it works so well with some of the things he was trying to talk about. And so I think the biblical reference again, what is that in the Bible? That's the plagues trying to set the people, the Israelites, go. It's trying to set,
Hmm.
it's to help them get freed. And I think so in that moment in the movie, it's helping these characters be free from a lot of the stuff that's been dragging them down. So I think that's kind of again where it fits, but it's also just a really weird, probably the most surreal moment out of any Paul Thomas Anderson film. Like it's just very surreal and bizarre.
Yeah. And yeah, that's a sign of a That's when you know you're a great writer, when you're making these profound connections and you don't even know it.
Yeah, exactly. Just accidentally. Yeah.
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 So then we have Girl Interrupted, biographical drama directed by X-Men's own James Mangold, who of course also did Logan, but it's funny that the guy who did X-Men did this kind of movie as well. But okay, based on the 1993 memoir by Susanna Kaysen, stars Winona Ryder, Angelina Jolie, Brittany Murphy, and Jared Leto. Ryder plays Susanna Kaysen, an 18-year-old psych patient with borderline personality disorder. Following a suicide attempt, she's committed to a year and a half in a psych ward. It's definitely a downer of a movie, as most of these are.
Mhm.
Last week's episode was a lot more. I'm not going to say the episode was more fun, but there were a lot more fun movies.
Yeah,
But it did shine a light on the mental health industrial complex, and
absolutely.
Jolie was definitely the star here, though, winning the Academy Award for Best Supporting Actress. What do you think of this one?
Yeah, Angelina Jolie might as well start there. She just has crazy screen presence in this movie, and you can see why it got her the best supporting. I mean, she's this character that is so, I mean, she just uses everybody around her, and she's so broken, I guess, in a way, that that's all she can do. She just wants to cause problems and cause fights and fracture every relationship. But yet you can also see why everybody in the movie was kind of drawn to her, because we're drawn to her as well. And so, yeah, I thought her performance was just electric. Um, James Mangold, I mean, you mentioned it off the top that he's done X-Men. That guy, as a director, has had quite the interesting career. Look at this list of titles that he's directed. So, Walk the Line and A Complete Unknown. He's done musical biopics. 310 to Yuma, which is a Western. Logan, Ford versus Ferrari. Kate and Leopold, which is a romantic comedy. And Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. Like, this guy
Yeah,
is all over the map in terms of styles, which I kind of like. Like, I don't,
yeah.
he obviously doesn't want to get pigeonholed. He
No,
just directs
bravo,
what
bravo.
he thinks are interesting performances. And yeah, kudos to him. This is one of the movies that I probably hadn't seen since it first came out. And so I'd forgotten almost everything about it. And I think again, the point that you made about the sort of mental health industrial complex, that's definitely a lasting theme from this that I'm going to stick. You know, are these people really interested in helping these people get better, or because they make money and because that's how their everything operates? And
Right,
these are corporations, some of them that are running some of these facilities. Are they invested in maybe keeping the people a little bit sick? That it's a very interesting question. And even I think in this movie, I don't think it comes down on a clear side. Like at
mm,
first, it seems like it's one way, and you're really supposed to hate them, but then in the end, maybe Winona Ryder does get better by being. So I think it is that ambiguity I enjoyed in this movie as well.
yeah, I completely agree because there are, like with any industry, there are good actors and bad actors, and I don't mean that in the dramatic sense. I mean that
Hmm.
in the real life sense. And some people are out there just to make as much money as they possibly can, and some people are out there just trying to help people. It's the same in the healthcare system, and that's why it's such a fucked up and complicated arena to even tackle. So, um, and that goes back to One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest and
Yep.
anything dealing with mental health. And yeah, Angelina Jolie was obviously the star, but watching this again, I actually had to see this one. Pretty much saw this. I think I saw this in 1999 just because I saw that it had Angelina Jolie in it, and I was an Angelina Jolie fan.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but Brittany Murphy, RIP,
Hmm.
she had so much ahead of her, and this is probably the film that encapsulated her entire story without, being a story about Brittany Murphy. You know what I mean?
Yeah, good point. I didn't even think about that. You're right. Yeah, that is kind of sad. Yeah.
Yeah, so a great movie, great that it exists out in the world, and there should be more stuff like this.
Yep. Then next up. Christmas Day. Talented Mr. Ripley arrives in 1999. Not exactly a Christmas movie. This was a thriller by director Anthony Minghella. The screenplay was adapted by him from the novel by Patricia Highsmith. It stars Matt Damon, Gwyneth Paltrow, Jude Law, Kate Blanchett, and Philip Seymour Hoffman, once again making his second appearance in this podcast. It was nominated for 5 Oscars. It was fairly successful at the box office, made 120 million worldwide on a $40 million budget. I'd say thematically, it's a bit like being John Malkovich in that, Tom Ripley's character is just so unhappy with who he is that he tries to become someone else.
Okay.
But in this case, he's willing to do anything to make that happen, including obviously killing a bunch of people along the way, and being a very dangerous con artist. The the filming of this, the period style, the music, the locations are all amazing. Like this is a beautifully shot film. And then because we you only mentioned him before, we got to talk about Philip Seymour Hoffman.
100, yeah.
I mean, just a supporting role in this, and obviously a very small role in Magnolia, but completely different roles. His voice even is sounds different.
Oh
He
my
was
God.
just such an amazing actor, and it's such a loss that he's been gone for a few years because he was such a chameleon, and yet every role, no matter what kind of role it was, you could just the emotion and the soul of that character just oozed off the screen, and it definitely did in this. I mean, this one oozing in a horrible, like he's such a kind of despicable prick, but just a great performance by Philip Seymour Hoffman in this.
Well, who's the despicable prick? He or
Yeah,
Todd?
fair enough. Fair enough. Fair enough. I mean, Tom Ripley
And
is creepy and yes.
of course there's a world where they both are, and
Yeah.
that's so.
And I think that is this world because again, Jude Law's character as well, the Dickie Greenleaf character, Ripley is obviously the villain in the story, but Jude Law's character is just also such an entitled prick that it's kind of hard to feel sorry for him at all. I mean, maybe you don't want him to get killed, but it's yeah, I think it is a world where there's just a lot of unlikable people.
And yet again, this is another one that I only saw about 3 years ago, but it's become one of my not one of my favorite movies, but I really love this movie.
Hmm.
It has so much to say, but it doesn't hit you over the head with a message at all.
Yep.
Um, it stars two of my least favorite actors of all time, but it's still a great movie with Jude Law and sorry, Matt Damon and Gwyneth Paltrow. I've come to respect Jude Law over the past
Okay.
like
I thought you were going to throw Jude Law in there too.
no,
Okay.
I've come to really respect Jude Law over the past 10 years or so when he stopped doing the I'm British and I'm in a rom-com, or I'm British and I'm in a drama. It's like when he just like becomes an actor, then I'm
Yeah.
totally down with it. And he's done
I've
some
got a good friend who listens to this podcast who really dislikes Jude Law, and he's always said that there isn't a movie that can't be improved by the absence of Jude Law.
Oh wow.
Yeah, shout out to Andrew. But yeah, no, like Gwyneth Paltrow and Matt Damon. I don't. Well, I'm not as down on them as you are. I thought they both were excellent in this.
Gwyneth Paltrow sucks. Her her attempt at a transatlantic accent is deplorable,
Yeah,
and
I mean,
uh,
certainly when you put her up to against Kate Blanchett in the same movie, you're right. It she doesn't stand up.
and the only reason why she got even any kind of recognition for her Oscar in Shakespeare in Love is because she probably fucked Harvey Weinstein.
Yeah, we don't need to go there, but yeah, the Harvey Weinstein stuff. We should mention this was a Miramax movie, and yeah, let's just stay away from Harvey Weinstein because there's a lot of bad stuff that
I just
happened in the
gotta throw it
'90s
out
with him.
there
Yeah.
because I think if the three main leads were just a bit better, this would be an all-time great. Um, I totally forgot.
I thought Damon actually though was I mean this is some of the actual capital A acting that we actually see from him. We don't see him do this kind of stuff very often because I did find watching this that he's deliberately doing this like weird stuff with his mouth and his lip that he doesn't necessarily do in every movie. It's not him. That was definitely a character part that he did, and some of I don't know. I appreciated his performance in this. How he could play creepy, and in those moments where it seemed like he felt trapped, but then he'd always be able to pivot and find some new lie to get him out of it. I did like those moments where you could see him feeling trapped on his face. I thought actually Matt Damon's performance was pretty good in this.
Yeah, I think you did a good job, which is why I think this is a fantastic movie. I just think could have been done better. But I totally forgot that Tommy kills Dickie less than halfway through the movie. And also, I love stories about obsession.
Mm,
Um, Ambition and drive kind of bring out the best and worst in humanity. But when obsession, quote unquote, comes into play, the darkness of it always kind of piques my interest.
yeah,
And I don't mean obsessed in the way that millennials mean when they say, OMG, I'm literally obsessed with this dress or anything like
yeah,
that. I mean, like real obsession.
yeah, like dangerous psychological obsession. Yeah.
Yeah. Uh, again, okay. I really like the movie Saltburn, but
Mm.
I haven't heard that many people say that it's a complete ripoff of this movie in every single way. Like,
That was my immediate thought when I saw Saltburn,
oh,
actually.
okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Was that it was very much talented Mr. Ripley. So yeah,
Yeah,
that's interesting.
I think I thought that as when I saw Saltburn, but I don't think I've said it on this particular show.
No,
And
no.
Jack Davenport, aka Commodore Norrington from Pirates of the Caribbean, was
Yes,
actually really great in
he
this.
was. Yeah. And you mentioned that it doesn't hit you over the head with its themes or at least its message. I think the themes are all throughout. But to me, if there is a message in this, and I mean, again, it's hard to draw too much and say that they're trying to force a message down your throat. But I think it is about kind of the dangers of inauthenticity, because it's obviously not just Tom Ripley that's being inauthentic.
Oh,
It's a
sure,
lot of
sure.
the other characters too, and some of the dangers of that. And I love the line in the movie. I think it might even be in the voiceover where Tom Ripley's character says, "You never meet anyone who thinks they're a bad person."
Hmm.
Um, and yeah, that's it. It's like these people trying to almost convince themselves that no matter what they do is right because they're doing it to get ahead. As you said, the ambition and the obsession combining to horrible ends.
And one last very quick note. We wouldn't have the cult classic and the notoriously worst movie ever made, The Room, without this movie. And if anybody's ever read or seen The Disaster Artist, you know what I mean. But
Yes, good note.
and last up, we have the Boondock Saints, which is actually like a action entertainment movie that
Yes.
probably should have been in the first 6 months, but again, it plays against all these other movies. So
Yeah, the release dates between this and Eyes Wide Shut probably should have been swapped.
it's a shoot 'em up action movie directed by Troy Duffy and starring Sean Patrick Flanagan and Norman Reedus as two Irish brothers. After killing two Russian mafia members in self-defense at the bar they own, they are forced to become vigilantes. They set out on a Catholic holy mission to rid the beloved Boston of the criminal element, but the FBI agent and crossdresser extraordinaire Willem Dafoe is hot on their heels. It grossed 50 mil on a $6 million budget and became a massive cult hit, spawning an admittedly subpar sequel in 2009.
Yeah. Yeah, so this was the one movie this week that I actually wasn't able to rewatch, but I had seen it before a couple of times. And we should know we're also playing a little bit like it was released um at film festivals throughout the fall. Technically, it wasn't wide released until January of the next year, but we're still canning it because it's listed as a 1999 movie. And I think for me, this is it's a mix of the very familiar in terms of like all the action tropes and the some of the gun battles and the shootouts and all that kind of stuff. So it's a mix of that with some fairly unique elements, like this, the religious fanaticism, um, and almost messianic figures, and then yeah, as you said, like the sort of the cross-dressing FBI guy who's on their trail. Like, so there's these unique elements mixed in with this very familiar action movie. And I think that's why it's become such a bit of a cult classic, because it's a movie that's easily accessible. People can get in and watch and be like, oh, okay, this is a fun action movie. But then there's these things that just make it stand out and make it different. And I think that's part of why it, I mean, this is one of those movies, we've mentioned this before in terms of movies in the 90s and in particular this time. This is a movie that on first release wasn't actually that successful, but became enormously successful on video rental. Back in the day, for you youngsters, there were these VHS tapes and you get them anyway. Um, so I think in part that's why this is a successful and interesting movie and didn't just fade into the background as yet another action movie. And it's also very, very tied to location and people. It's very much Irish Catholic in Boston.
Yeah.
So I think that also helps it stand out with its own unique niche there.
Yeah, 100%. All the action was great, if a bit cheesy, but it was very stylized, and Willem Dafoe just doing his
Chewing
thing, man.
scenery. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Great. Yeah, well put. Just chewing scenery in every fucking scene.
Yeah,
And he's been doing that for 30, 40 years now. And
exactly.
so, yeah. And this is another like very cult classic where it was either, if you were in college during my day, you either had Fight Club, this movie,
Mm.
or just like a random Pink Floyd or Bob Marley poster on your dorm
Right,
wall.
right, right.
But
Yeah.
other than that, yeah, everybody was like, if you haven't seen this movie, it's like you have the people who have seen this movie and those who hadn't, and
Yeah.
if you hadn't, then you're out of the cool club. So, and
Yeah.
yeah, just very entertaining. Not a whole lot to really say, although when you saw, yeah, when my college bros saw it, you're like, oh man, no, no, you're like, it's so like religious and there's all these different backgrounds, all this shit. Like, no, man, it's just a shoot
Yeah,
'em
no,
up.
a lot of it is pasted on, like a lot of the religious fanaticism is pasted on to these things, but
Yeah,
it does give it that interesting sort of texture, I
yeah,
guess, that a lot of
but
action movies wouldn't have.
going back to our Matrix discussion from last week, this is
Right.
also heavily affected by the Columbine High School massacre,
Yes. Yeah.
and the studio kind of drew the promotion of this movie back a little bit, which is probably
Yeah.
why it didn't do as well in the box office, because
Mhm.
The Matrix came out before this happened and Boondock Saints came out, and everybody was like on pins and needles because this is before, school shootings were normalized, so nobody cares.
Yeah. Jeez. Yeah.
um, yeah, so everybody was like, "Oh my God, we can't show a movie like this because who knows what kind of people it'll influence." But
We're two guys were going in and shooting up rooms. Yeah, you're right. It got caught in the same thing. And just yeah, the studio reacted in a different way than they did with the Matrix, and definitely hurt it. But that wasn't it. There were still a lot of other movies in the last 4 months of 1999 that were released, and we're just going to run through a bunch really quickly. So this movie called Three Kings was released, and personal note, this is the first movie that I ever saw an advanced screening of. I actually
oh,
won tickets to see an advanced screening by calling into a radio show at one point when I was living
oh,
in
oh
Vancouver.
my God, really?
Yeah, when I was living in Vancouver. Very, very odd. So this is a David O. Russell movie. David O. Russell of, Silver Linings Playbook, American Hustle. It takes place in Iraq right after the Persian Gulf War. Stars George Clooney, Mark Wahlberg, Ice Cube, and actually in a smaller role, Spike Jonze, the director of Being John Malkovich.
All right, then we have Boys Don't Cry, which is very ahead of its time, a kind of trans movie with Hilary Swank, and uh, yeah, caused a lot of controversy in its day, but didn't really get the credit it deserved.
Yeah, absolutely. The Limey also came out in the fall of 1999. It's basically a slick Steven Soderbergh crime drama starring Terrence Stamp and Peter Fonda. Not too much to say. It's just it's a fun Soderbergh movie.
Yep, and we already talked about Fight Club, so
Yeah, and then also Princess Mononoke came out in that year, and this is a Japanese animated film by Hayao Miyazaki, who's very well known in animated circles, known for Spirited Away, Howl's Moving Castle, movies like that. And this is probably the film that first brought him to the attention of North American audiences. So it's definitely notable for that.
yep. Then we have All About My Mother, which is a comedy drama directed by Pedro Almodovar, and it was nominated for Best Foreign Language Film of that year.
Mhm. And then Dogma is another one that we might have wanted to go into more in depth on, but we've already discussed this a couple of weeks ago in our Easter special on movies about Christianity. So if you want to hear our thoughts about Dogma, go listen to that episode.
Then we have Toy Story 2, and
Yeah, pretty
what
big
can I,
movie.
yeah, and
99 was packed.
yeah, what can I say about Toy Story 2? It's, Pixar sequel to Toy Story 1.
Yeah. And then speaking of franchises, there was The World Is Not Enough, which was a James Bond flick. It was Pierce Brosnan's third Bond film. Also stars Sophie Marceau, Robert Carlyle, and improbably and hilariously Denise Richards as a nuclear scientist named Dr. Christmas Jones. So yeah, it was kind of ridiculous.
I've heard all the Christmas jokes. Then we have Sleepy Hollow, uh, Tim Burton, Johnny
Doing,
Depp,
yeah,
but
Tim Burton doing Tim Burton things.
no Helena Bonham Carter in this one though. So very interesting departure artistically from Tim Burton. Instead, I'll go with Christina Ricci, which is what is all he's second go to if he doesn't
Yeah.
have Helena Bonham Carter.
We also had The Cider House Rules, which is a period drama based on the book by John Irving. He also wrote the screenplay. It starred Tobey Maguire, Charlize Theron, and Michael Caine. And this movie probably stays in the public consciousness, almost solely for Caine's line, "Good night, you princes of Maine, you kings of New
Mm.
England." But yeah, it was a big movie at the time too.
And we have Any Given Sunday, the Oliver Stone football movie with Al Pacino, Jamie Foxx, and a whole host of other guys. And again, we probably would highlight that in the 1999 series, but we're planning on doing a football centric episode in probably September before football season begins.
Yeah. And then also Man on the Moon. This was a film by Milos Forman. It was about the life of wacky comedian Andy Kaufman. And this starred Jim Carrey. This was a year after The Truman Show. And Carrey was definitely in his, I'm really trying to win an Oscar phase in this one. It did win him the Golden Globe, but he didn't even get an Oscar nomination, sadly.
Yeah, and I love him in his dramatic roles. But
Yeah, me
okay,
too.
then last but not least, we have Galaxy Quest, which is 1999 comedy sci-fi movie that was not appreciated in its day at all, but has
Not
grown to
enough.
be has grown to be one of the most beloved sci-fi comedies ever, actually. It's Tim Allen, Sigourney Weaver, Alan Rickman, Tony Shalhoub, Sam Rockwell, and Darrow Mitchell, and yeah, just a great fun time.
Yeah, yeah, it's one of the best sci-fi parodies of all time, and Alan Rickman is just absolutely brilliant as always.
All right, and that's it. Bring on.
He's glitching again. That Y2K bug. Oh no, we thought we had fixed it.
All right, bring on Y2K. Next week we have actor spotlight, our first actor spotlight, and we're gonna
Yes.
do a career retrospective on Keanu Reeves.
Woo.
So any of you fans of Speed or The Matrix that we have done in the past few weeks? Come on.
Yeah,
Again,
we got the ballerina coming out this weekend, so we thought this would be a perfect time to look back at the career of one fellow Canadian, Keanu Reeves.
yep. So like and subscribe and join us next time. I am Zach Miller. He is Martin Cooke, and we'll see you next time on the Unsolicited Film Reviews podcast.
Goodbye, everyone.